Hey everybody, back again. Having had a cold end of last week, my voice is a bit more cleared up now, so that's good. So this week's story time. Um, I kind of got reminded of it today. I was talking, we were talking different kind of, development languages, the kind of things about the speed, the compilation, and all that kind of stuff. And it kind of reminded me. I think it's partly because someone said about doing it in C, and I thought, well, going back quite a few years, one of the first languages I kind of developed in, I think it was, it was the first language commercially really was C, which led to C++ and so on. Now, this is going back 24 years, could even be coming up to 25 because it could have been the end of 2020, 2000 rather, not 2020, 2000. And I was working on a project for, and this is showing the age, it was 3G. So it was still 2.5G at the time. There wasn't any kind of smartphones or anything like that. It was all just 2.5G. Turning into 3G were coming out well before any smartphones and that kind of stuff. In fact, I remember having the N80, Nokia N80 smartphones of the late O's, and that was quite a jump forward compared to what I was used to. Anyway, I'm going to digress if I don't watch it. So anyway, this is kind of, it was, I think it was kind of a comical thing to me at the time. So I got asked to look at a bug in a tool that they'd created. So for this new project, everything was written in C back then, C and shell script, and there were issues. Obviously, they're writing this whole kind of new kind of service and system, and it's actually reminded me just after MMS. Because the first thing I did before this was I did MMS. But anyway, they had this load of new server systems, software, and obviously as they were building and testing, and it was a little bit different, the development process back then, obviously many years ago, but there were lots of crashes, and I'm going to move this second. Hold on, there we go. There were lots of crashes. And because it was all written on Unix, it was all core dump. So basically, a core dump is basically it's a binary, I suppose, or a collection of the state of the application at the time. So you could load that into a debugger and see, what values were being held in, what variables, the state, and all that kind of stuff. So you could replay and figure out what the issues were. So they had this tool that said, right then, and create this tool that said, when a core dump happens, take that core dump and put it in a folder. I don't understand why, because to be honest, to get the most out of a core dump, you needed the application run against. But anyway, they did this thing. And the bug they come to me and said, in this application that takes a core dump, every now and again, randomly, it core dumped. So it crashed, which is kind of comical because they've got this tool that is supposed to be taking these crashes, these core dumps, and putting them in a folder, but that was actually crashing before it could put them in the folder. So that kind of made me giggle a little bit. It's a kind of a funny, thing. But the issue, which I found relatively quickly, to be honest, came down to a common thing that was in C, and it was to do with accessing invalid memory. So, and this is why I thought about it today. We were talking about stuff, and I said, oh yeah, I remember back in the day when you used to basically allocate, you step into your memory, and then you could just increment through the memory location and etc. So this particular issue, what they did was they they had a pointer variable, allocated memory to it, so malloc some memory to it. Malloc, calloc. There's some commands I haven't talked about for a long time. And then they would use a Unix command that basically passed in the folder data, and then they could use that to kind of get the file and copy, etc. But what the issue was they created the pointer correct. They allocated enough memory, because obviously that could have been an issue. They weren't allocating enough memory. Allocated enough memory correctly. Read in the I think they read in the folder and information, all that at this point anyway. And then they basically drop data that, I can't remember if it was in another function or if it was just another outside of wherever the scope was for this memory allocation, but they dropped outside where the memory allocation scope was, and then they tried to sort of grab this data from this memory location. So what would happen is that sometimes it would work, but because it had gone out of scope and it was no longer reserved, basically anything could be in that memory, at that point. So it could still retain the information for the file that they wanted, or something else could have used a bit of memory and it could have some other information. So you basically gain a corruption. So that was it, and it kind of made me laugh. I mean, you don't really see much of that these days, but it was really all about memory allocation, scope of memory allocation, and trying to access memory that was out of scope, potentially being used by something else, and it was corrupt, and so everything would crash. So yeah, that's kind of a funny story. I always remember, even 2024, going on 25 years ago, is still very vivid in my brain because of what it was, a core dump tool. So there you go for this week. That's my story of the week. Hopefully you find some of these interesting. I mean, I kind of love sharing these things. I've got loads of them, but sometimes my memory's a bit faded on a lot of them, and they pop into my brain because something happens to remind me, like this one. Although this one actually does come quite a lot, to be honest. Anyway, enough for this week. I'll catch you next week. Bye for now.